Hello, classic rock fans. I am reporting just a couple of days after seeing The English Beat featuring Dave Wakeling and DEVO at Summerfest here in Milwaukee. So two great alternative bands of the early MTV era. First up, The English Beat, sometimes also known as The Beat. Band is most famous for their song Mirror in the Bathroom, and also for playing at both US festivals in 1982 and 1983. The English Beat comes to Milwaukee very often, and to my great regret, I have skipped them every time I've had the chance. And that was mostly because I wasn't terribly familiar with their catalog. But they were definitely on my list, and I'm happy to say I finally got to one of their shows because I really enjoyed it. It was not a long set, only 9 songs, and they came on at about 6 o'clock. And they opened their show with a number of covers, actually. The first song was called Rough Rider, which I believe they have on one of their albums. And then they did a cover of the Staples Singers' I'll Take You There, which is a song I would say almost everybody knows. But that was a song that the Beat never covered on one of their albums. That was a song that Dave Wakeling covered with his other group, General Public, I think in the early 90s. And then the song after that was General Public's biggest hit, Tenderness. So if you're just a casual music fan, you might not know some of the deep cuts from The English Beat, but there's a chance that you would recognize Tenderness, and you would almost certainly know the song I'll Take You There. So the Beat's setlist actually includes a number of accessible songs fairly early on, and I think they do that to basically convince casual listeners in this festival setting to stick around and see what other stuff they might know. And I should also say that it's not like a straight cover of I'll Take You There. It's a ska reggae version of that song, and that's because The English Beat is a ska and reggae band. So if you're not familiar with them, this would be a band that you would want to check out if you're a fan of The Police, particularly their early work, or perhaps the early work of UB40. Except the difference between UB40 and The English Beat is that The English Beat is good. Alright, anyway, speaking of things that are good, a little later in the set, The English Beat did one of their biggest hits. It's a song called Save It for Later. I absolutely love that song. That was one of the highlights of the whole set. And it wasn't just me. They had a huge crowd. Now, they had the advantage of being at one of the center stages at Summerfest. They were at the Generac Power Stage, and that's one of the primary stages in the center of Summerfest. So it gets a lot of traffic of people just kind of walking through. A lot of casual listeners. But that could be a double-edged sword, because if the band doesn't impress, the crosstalk of potentially all these people in the stands can really affect the band on that stage negatively. So, yes, you have an advantage of having this big crowd when you come out and play on that stage, but you've got to win that big crowd over. Otherwise, the disinterest will become very noticeable. And to the English Beat's credit, they not only had everyone's attention, they had people on their feet dancing. And I think a lot of these people were dancing to songs that they didn't know beforehand. They were just enjoying the music that was going on. It was very danceable and very accessible. After Save It for Later, they did a politically charged song called Stand Down Margaret, which is about Margaret Thatcher, who was the Prime Minister of the UK in the 80s. Obviously, she's long gone, but I do believe the political message of that song still resonates today. That said, I'm sure the political message of the song was mostly lost on this festival crowd, and that's fine, because the song is actually quite good even if you're not paying attention to the lyrics. After that, a couple of other English Beat deep cuts, Too Nice to Talk To and Ranking Full Stop. Both of those are fun songs, and I'm sure favorites of Beat fans. And the finale of the show, of course, was their big hit, Mirror in the Bathroom, which, if you didn't know, is not about cocaine use, even though I'm sure that's everybody's first thought, and there's all kinds of opportunities for jokes with that, I'm sure. But no, that song is about struggling with mental health issues, it's about mental illness, it's about facing yourself in that mirror in the bathroom. So it's a much more thoughtful song than you might assume if you're jumping to the conclusion that it must be about cocaine, which it is not. Subject matter aside, that is one of my favorite songs of the early 80s. That is such a jam. The sax on that is incredible. And I think that's really one of the biggest appeals of this whole band, is their use of saxophone. If you like saxophone in your songs, well, check out the English Beat, because I think sax is prominent in pretty much every one of their songs. And the band behind Dave was fantastic, and I absolutely intend to see them again next time I get a chance. Hopefully, I'll get to see them in a setting where they get to play a little longer, because being a festival show, this was an abbreviated set. That said, I'm glad Summerfest books them as often as they do. I hope I get more chances to see them at Summerfest as well. I will definitely not be passing on them again. And that's just because the set list they've put together for their festival bookings is fantastic. It's a danceable, enjoyable, accessible show all the way through. So even if you don't know any of their songs beyond Mirror in the Bathroom, you're probably going to have a good time if you like Mirror in the Bathroom, because that song is not an anomaly in their discography. Most of their music is very much of that vibe. So if you like Mirror in the Bathroom, I think you're going to like more music from the English Beat. So if they come to your town, I would definitely recommend you go see them. And if they're playing a festival near you, that might be even better, because they're really well suited for a short set in front of a big crowd. So yeah, if you see them on the bill, definitely go check them out. All right, after that, we moved over to the Uline Warehouse, because that is where DEVO was going to play. But because I knew that DEVO was going to attract a huge crowd, we went over there as soon as the English Beat was done and got, thankfully, pretty close up. We were about 5-6 rows back. And we got there about 7:30, which meant we were going to see the band that was playing before DEVO as well. And that band was a group called The Producers. Now, despite being a big fan of 80s music, I am embarrassed to say, but I am not familiar with The Producers at all. I hadn't even heard of them up until this point. And that's to my regret, because I did enjoy some of the music that they played. All of it was new to me. There wasn't anything in the set list that lost me. I wasn't bored at any points. But I know so little about them that I don't want to review their set, because, frankly, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'll just say that as someone who's a total stranger to their music, I enjoyed it. And I want to introduce myself to more of it, so I probably will listen to some of their songs now. Glad I got a chance to see them, but I can't say much more than I had a good time. All right, the main event, DEVO. The last time DEVO was in Milwaukee was at Summerfest in 2010. And before that, it was, I think, some point in the 90s. So DEVO does not come around very often. And in 2010, I had an opportunity to go see them. I skipped them to see somebody else, which I have regretted ever since. Not because the other show I saw wasn't good, it was, but I just thought that DEVO was going to come around more often. I didn't realize it was that rare of a show, because it's been 15 years since then. And that sucks, man, because DEVO is fucking good. They're not just good, like, they're special. This was not just another concert at Summerfest. Seeing DEVO this year was an event. And thinking back to everything I had heard about their performance in 2010 at Summerfest, it was described the same way. It was an event. It was a very special show. It was a big deal that they were there. So that's one of my biggest concert regrets, is not seeing DEVO back in 2010. So I'm relieved that I had the opportunity to make up for that and see them this year, because they not only did not disappoint, they exceeded my expectations, and I had high expectations. Hello there, future editing Joe here. As a matter of coincidence, the person I'm interviewing for my next episode of my podcast, music journalist Gary Graff, also happened to attend a DEVO concert recently. Gary came on the podcast to talk about his new book, 501 Essential Albums of the 1980s, and I had seen on his social media that he went to see DEVO in concert. So when I interviewed him, I asked him what he thought about the show. And since this video is my review of a recent DEVO concert, I figured I would include his remarks alongside mine in this video as a bit of bonus footage, as well as a tease for our upcoming interview. So hopefully you enjoy what Gary has to say here, and please keep an eye out for my full interview with Gary, which will be posted very soon. Okay, on with the review.
So it really has been a delight to see how well that music has aged and how current it sounds, not just on record, but, you know, having both just seen them live. It was a killer concert.
It was beyond just a concert. It was a multimedia event. They played several videos, one to open the show and a couple of others before songs, which was, I think, just to give them time to do costume changes, because they had like 4 different costume changes through the show. They're extremely unique for their on-stage presentation. That should go without saying. A lot of robotic sort of moves. Mark Mothersbaugh, at several points during the show, is just marching up and down the front of the stage. These guys were pushing themselves. They were working up there. And that was awesome to see, because this band is really long in the tooth. I mean, their first album is all the way back in 1978, and a couple of their original members have passed away. But they were performing as well as really any band I've ever seen, and better than most bands that I've seen.
They're in good shape, the 3 remaining members and the 2 guys with them. They're still in good shape. They still have that goofy affect to them. The costume changes.
They opened the show with a song called Don't Shoot, I'm a Man, and that really set the mood for the whole show, because they had a very funny video presentation behind them as they played it. The song was extremely high energy. There was comedy in the lyrics. Again, they were moving all over the stage. And I didn't know that song. I guess it's from the album they did in 2010. But it definitely set the tone for the night. In the early part of the set, they did a couple of songs that I was familiar with, like Peekaboo and Girl You Want. I didn't take a whole lot of pictures or video, and that's primarily because I was having too much fun dancing at just about every one of these songs, even the ones I didn't know. DEVO was very much about getting people to dance, and that was great energy. It was really fun being a part of that crowd. After Girl You Want, they did the one song that most everybody knows, Whip It, and I wasn't totally surprised by how early in the night that they played it, because I think that's their way of saying it's just another song for them.
You know, I admired the cojones that you played Whip It, your 6th song in. Half hour into the show and you're putting your biggest hit there. That shows a real confidence in a catalog. Yeah. to then have yet another hour of music that you have that kind of confidence in.
I think the safe move for a band like DEVO would have taken that song, put it at the very end of the set, extended it from 2.5 minutes to 6, put like some crowd sing-along chant in the middle of it, and that would have been the typical move for like a legacy band. But DEVO is very much not that. Their identity is very much anti-establishment and not doing the conventional thing. They are like art rock.
You had to get your head around it. It was arty. It was art.
They played a whole video before they came out on stage talking about, in a comedic way, the pressures they felt from the music industry to conform and be like other bands. And they are very defiantly not that. So yeah, taking their biggest hit and putting it early in the set and playing it with a lot of energy and making it awesome, but not doing the standard concert fare stuff around it, I thought was pretty bold, and I also appreciated that. After Whip It, they played a song called Planet Earth and then went off stage for a costume change, and that's where another video played for a little while. And then after the video, they came back out on stage wearing the iconic yellow jumpsuits, and then they did their version of the Rolling Stones' I Can't Get No Satisfaction, which I gotta say is probably the best cover of that song. A lot of bands have covered that song, a lot. But I think DEVO's is probably the only one that even rivals the original version of that song. Because they truly did something different with their version, and it's a great song in its own right. Then after that was another cover, Secret Agent Man, which is hilarious. That song is hilarious to begin with, and it's even funnier when they do it. So that was absolutely a highlight. And from there, we were on a hot streak with Uncontrollable Urge. Oh, man. Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that song, and people lost it when he was doing that. It's just so much fun. I'm going to use that word again and again, because that's what the whole night was. Fun. Okay, Mongoloid, Jocko Homo, Smart Patrol, Mr. DNA, and then a song I wasn't familiar with beforehand, but really impressed me, Gates of Steel, with the lyrics, "A man is real, not made of steel." That connected with me. I liked the visuals and the video board behind them. Again, my perspective going in was I knew some of DEVO's bigger hits. I didn't know their deep catalog. So many of these songs that I wasn't familiar with beforehand, I was hearing for the first time, and given how good those songs were, it was awesome having the first time I'm hearing these songs be live on stage from the band. That's one of the best things about going to concerts. So if you're like me and you're not totally familiar with DEVO, if you only know Whip It, trust me, go see them, because you will like the rest of the stuff that they played. And then after that, they closed it with the DEVO corporate anthem, Freedom of Choice, and Gut Feeling, Slap Your Mammy, all fan favorites. The closing song of the night was their track, Beautiful World. I think that was the highlight of the whole show. Not just because it's one of their best songs, but because a minute or so into the song, Mark Mothersbaugh came back out onto the stage in character as Mr. Boogie, which is a mascot of sorts for the band. It is a deeply unsettling, but in a good way, visual, as Mr. Boogie is a man baby in a fat suit. And Mark Mothersbaugh sings in a super high-pitched voice as he's doing it. Very bizarre, but very entertaining. And given that it was the end of the show, he was also doing band introductions. And one of the guys in the band, I guess, had a birthday the next day, so he was also wishing one of his guys a happy birthday, but he's doing it in character as this Mr. Boogie with a very high-pitched voice. And for some reason, during the band introductions, the video board was playing a montage of truly bizarre clips that had nothing to do with whatever was going on stage. It was like newsreel footage of wars from the 80s and starving kids in Africa, cut with clips from their music videos and other bizarre visuals. And you hear Mothersbaugh saying how his bandmate's got a birthday coming up. It was all so surreal that I heard one guy in my row audibly laughing just say, "What the fuck is going on?" And that was pretty much my emotion as well. And I think that's what they were going for. I think they were trying to basically confuse the audience in a positive, fun way of just bizarro world stuff. So it was effective, it was very memorable, and it was a great way to close the show. And I should note that Mr. Boogie character kind of reminded me of another band I had seen at Summerfest on that same stage a couple of years ago, The Tubes. Fee Waybill comes out in his character, Quaalude, near the end of every show for The Tubes, and I would say The Tubes and DEVO certainly have some fans in common, so it was cool to kind of think of that connection. But I will say this, of all the shows that I've seen in the last couple of years, the one that this show reminded me of the most was none of the classic rock acts I saw. The show that this one reminded me of the most was, of all bands, King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which I didn't even review on this channel because that band is way over my head. And DEVO was almost getting there too. And I mean that as a compliment. So yeah, if you like bands that are unique, if you like bands like The Flaming Lips, DEVO's probably a show you're going to enjoy as well.
And I expected they would be good, and I wasn't disappointed, and it was fun to be in a crowd. I'm sure you had this experience too, with how many people still have the upside down flower pot hats that they were bringing from home, not buying at the merch stand. So the whole DEVO world is still really strong, and I'll go back and see them this summer or later in the summer when they come around with the B-52s.
So yeah, I would say if DEVO comes to your town, particularly on this tour they're going to do in fall with the B-52s, absolutely go see them. If only because we don't know if and when they're going to come back. It was 15 years since the last time they toured, and we're at a point now where I don't assume that any of the classic rock era bands that I like is going to be touring in 5 years, let alone 10 or another 15. So if DEVO is going to be doing an extended break after this year, there's no guarantee they're coming back. So this might be your chance. Go see them if you can. Otherwise, if you have seen DEVO before, be it in 2010, be it back in their heyday in the 80s, please tell me what your memories of those shows were. Or if you've seen them on this tour, let me know if I missed anything. Otherwise, if you're a fan of classic rock, please check out the other concert reviews I've done on this channel. I guarantee I've talked about a different artist or band that you're a fan of. And if you are that fan of classic rock, check out the podcast I do. It's all about classic rock, and we are just about to post our 100th episode. So that's going to be special. Please stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. Keep rocking, and I'll just leave you with this question. Are we not men?
We are DEVO. It's a beautiful